with your relationships. Well, my buddy Frank here has got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's, 'cause he knows what you are going through, 'cause Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com, to franktalks.com.
You're listening to the Howie Silbiger Show on the True Talk Radio Network. Connect with Howie by phone 514-738-4100 extension 200, by email howie@truetalkradio.com, or by Twitter, Howie Silbiger.
He's an accomplished author with more than 20 books under his belt, maybe even 30. You could read his writings on franktalks.com. His name is Frank, and he is Frank because he has to be. He is Frank Kermit, and he is a relationship expert and relationship coach. So if you need any help, being in a relationship or getting into a relationship, he's the guy you want to talk to. And he is joining us now here on the round table. We have stand-up comedian and single father Avi Tani, and we have Avi's little brother Reuben, who's 12.
Yep.
And, of course, Avi and Frank both, along with me, blog on truetalkradio.com. So if you want to read some of the ratings, you go to truetalkradio.com. Frank's website is franktalks.com. Avi doesn't have a website
Yet.
but he's on truetalkradio.com, and we're happy to have him there. And one day he'll update his blog, and we'll be happy about that.
We'll get that done soon.
So, do we come up with a topic? Because we were talking during the break, and I was busy doing something else. So I was just wondering, do we have a topic for this roundtable? It's nice to introduce everyone, but I don't know what the topic is.
Well,
Nobody told me.
Let's talk about. Yeah, that's a good idea. Ruben's mentioning Facebook. Let's talk about.
What about Facebook?
Let's talk about children on Facebook. Let's talk about why 12-year-olds shouldn't be on Facebook.
Well, I think if kids are going onto Facebook, parents have to really have access to their accounts and be able to read everything.
But do you think with mobile devices out there, we have the iPhones? Do you think it's really possible to be constantly be vigilant over those accounts?
I'll be honest with you. I have Facebook up on the computer here in the studio most of the time. I have my iPad in the studio with me, and I have my iPhone in the studio with me. One day, I left my iPhone lying in the other room, and Facebook's always open on my iPhone.
Right.
And I was chatting with somebody, and Itai was sitting in the other room reading the chat. So, yeah, you can be. If it's always logged in,
yeah.
You could be reading everything and seeing everything that's happening in your kid's Facebook on your mobile devices.
Yeah,
for sure.
You could, but you think your kid's really gonna let you do that? You think your kid's gonna let you? You think my little brother's gonna let my parents have access to his Facebook all the time?
Actually,
I highly doubt it.
Well, no, I recently got an iPad. My mother, she always uses my iPad because the computer in our house never works. So she uses my iPad. I let her have my passcode. And one day she's like, "Okay, you're not protecting anything. You must not be doing anything inappropriate." I'm not protecting anything. So I give her my passcode, and she uses it for email and stuff. But she could check my Facebook whenever she wants. But does
it bother you that she could check your Facebook?
I kind of lock it when she goes on it, but she could. Sometimes she takes it when I'm at school or something. And
does it bother you that she could look at the stuff? Do you do anything on there?
That's the thing.
You see,
I don't do anything inappropriate.
You see, the general rule when you go into these online sites, Facebook and Facebook and Tumblr and all these sites, the general rule is never put anything on these sites that you would never say anything.
You.
No, never say anything on these sites that you would never say in person. Never do anything on these sites that you wouldn't do in person.
Like going back to don't post pictures of your drunken stolen
penguins.
Of your drunken weekend.
Exactly.
Like I got served by a midget last weekend. I'm not going to put it on there because if a prospective employer.
Because the truth is that everything you post onto Facebook stays on Facebook. Facebook keeps everything.
That's right. So does Google.
Yeah. So they keep everything. So if they keep everything, even if you delete it out of your account, Facebook still has a copy of it and it's still accessible.
Wasn't there a story recently on the internet about a father who went to fix his daughter's laptop, saw some very unpleasant remarks that she had made about her parents, so he took a shotgun to her laptop, videotaped it, and put it on the internet.
Yeah, and it became an internet hit. Yeah.
It went viral, didn't it?
Yeah, it went viral.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I don't know if you heard the Wayne Gretzky situation on Twitter. Wayne Gretzky's daughter posted some very
good-looking pictures.
Good-looking pictures of herself on Twitter, and it was a huge thing. It was all over the news, and he got extremely angry about it. I think it was resolved in the end, but then it turns out a couple weeks ago there were new pictures posted. So what do you do about that if you're a parent? That's important too.
Look, it's very, very important that we remember as parents that there's only so much that we're going to be able to do to keep our children away from social media. Social media is now in our everyday lives more than we may want it. Right. And rather than promote ignorance in trying to protect children, we have to educate children and make them much more savvy about what's out there. And we have to do everything we can to monitor it, but that's not always going to be possible. But
Frank, there are websites out there right now. You could go to them right now. There's at least 3 websites that I know of that have open cams, right? And you go into these websites, and who's on these websites? Teenage boys, and they're exposing themselves, and they're doing all sorts of sexual things to themselves on these webcams.
Because there's no moderation.
That are just public open. The boundaries have disappeared. There's no more modesty. There's no more.
It was there before, though. When I was a teenager, you had like teen chat and all that stuff. But now it's very advanced. So now you can do that on a phone. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
You can't monitor.
Exactly. And do these kids not realize that someone could be recording the image on these webcams? And not only could they be recording the image, but eventually that image could come up and haunt them later on in life.
See, they don't care because, like Frank was saying, they're not. It does go to the parents too. The parents need to be. They need to be educating children, and you're going to have children who are going to go and do things like that, whether it's on the computer or whether it's in a park.
Well, it's very important to remember that most children don't understand the concept that there are going to be negative consequences to what they're doing today.
But Frank, we're talking about 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I mean, once you get to 17, you understand that your future is based on what you're doing today.
Not necessarily. Look, in my practice, sometimes I'll be coaching a young man or a young woman that might be in their early 20s, and they're trying to figure out if there's going to be such a big deal if they go into, let's say, an adult-related profession. Figuring, well, nobody's going to remember me anyway. I'll be wearing makeup. I'll wear a wig. I'll wear a mask. They don't grasp the concept that anything and everything you do can be used against you at a later time. Let's look at some of the recent stories right now where we have teachers who are losing their jobs because they're past doing things.
I know the story. I know the case you're referring to. That's a local case in Montreal where it was a teacher who was. I believe she was fired in the end because her students saw pictures of her online. But then you have to ask,
how are these students getting the access?
Kids are coming forward saying they have access to this, and you should be separating school but you should be separating that. Like, where does it suddenly come up, and where do they find this particular teacher? Like, who's is it? The parent showing the kid, or?
Well, think about this: if you're a kid in a school and you have a crush on a particular teacher, and you might want to search the internet for a woman who has the same type of characteristics as that teacher, and you start saying it has to be this height, this hair color, etc., you never know what's going to come up.
There was just a case reported yesterday about a middle school teacher in the States that was fired for starring in a pornographic movie.
Yeah.
So the question is, though, if they did this 10, 15 years ago when they were in their early 20s, right? And they did this to get through college, and they started in these movies to get through college, and now they've grown, they got their degrees, now they want to go into careers. Should what they did in their 20s, in their early 20s, to get through college really count today when they're in careers? Should this come back to bite them in the butt, or is the past and the future the future?
See, that's an interesting thing you're pointing out, because it's going to get worse because technology is building. And anything you do now, like you're saying, if you're 16 and you post something,
It's there forever.
They have clouds now. USB sticks aren't going to exist in 10, 15 years because it's all going to be on a cloud, and it's all going to be documented, and it's going to be easy to find the information, and that should be. And parents need to be, and schools especially need to be educating children about
schools give laptops to kids with webcams built into the laptops.
Yeah.
Parents give kids unfeathered access to the internet in the privacy of their own bedrooms. What do you think these kids are going to be doing?
I think parents giving their kids access to internet should have the computer in a public space where the parents can see what the child is doing.
You give a teenage boy a webcam and private access to the internet in a closed room, I don't care who the kid is.
Well, you give a teenager $20, he's going to go and find what he wants to do with that $20. It's not
exactly
that much,
my point, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, Frank, what do you think?
I think we're entering.
Oh, Ruben, you want to say something?
Go ahead.
Sorry, you're a kid. Let's hear from the
Yeah,
kid.
I just wanted to say that, you could be right, and yes, you can't be right. Most parents on the iPhone, iPad, you can lock the history, so you can't clear it. So parents have a passcode to pretty much say a password's 259. If you want to clear your history, you'll have to type in 259 to clear it.
What's your password?
I don't have a passcode on my history.
Ah.
But, if my parents wanted to put a passcode on my history or wanted to put my passcode on the internet, so if every certain amount of time they could pretty much, they'll have to type in a passcode and everything like that.
Okay, I grew up in a time when VCRs were just coming into fashion. And despite the fact that it's my parents' obligation...
You're old.
I'm very old. And despite the fact that it was my parents' quote-unquote obligation to monitor me and whatever it is I was taping, being the young one who was most comfortable with technology, I eventually was taping things for them, and I had control over the technology. That same behavior pattern still exists now, where kids are much more comfortable with the technology and how to work around it. So it's really a very unpleasant pressure that parents are having now. I'm a parent now, and I'm already starting to think about, okay, well, what are we going to do when this comes up? And it's going to come up.
How old are your child, if you don't mind?
I have one son right now who's about 3.
Okay, I'm in the same. I have my daughters are 2.5.
Yeah, and now we got to start thinking. Okay, when they start turning, we're not even waiting until they're teenagers. We have to make sure that they understand as early as possible.
Because sorry to interrupt you, but because we know it's inevitable, it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
it's not getting better. There's more technology and it's constant, and the stuff out there is just constantly getting worse. It's less filtered.
All right, you're listening to the Howie Silbiger Show here on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Show in Montreal. In studio with me is Frank Kermit. He's an author and relationship coach. Avi Tani, he's a stand-up comedian. Reuven Tani, he's 12. That's his only claim to fame. He's 12 and Avi's brother. And of course there's me. Well, you give me the death look there, Reuven.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a little break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Of course, lines are open. You call in, talk about anything at all that you want to talk about. But if you want to get on this topic, this is an interesting topic. Do you think kids should be more monitored and more controlled when it comes to technology today, or do you think that we should just let them ransack and do whatever they want on the internet? Because eventually it does come back to bite them. So should we have more control over what our kids do online today? 514-738-4100 extension 200.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com.
You're listening to the Howie Silbiger Show on the True Talk Radio Network. Connect with Howie by phone 514-738-4100 extension 200, by email howie@truetalkradio.com, or by Twitter, Howie Silbiger.
And in studio with me, Frank Kermit. He is a relationship expert and an author of over 100 books. And you could look at all his works on franktalks.com. We have stand-up comedian Avi Tani. We have Reuven Tani, who's 12. 514-738-4100 extension 200. That's 514-738-4100 extension 200. Calling about anything at all that you want to talk about. No matter how odd and weird it is, give us a call. 514-738-4100, extension 200. So, we got a text. I got a text message about the what our kids are doing online topic. Should we be watching what our kids are doing online? And it came from a kid. It came from a 13-year-old who said, "No, definitely not. We should be able to surf porn by ourselves without our parents watching us." Now, we know that this is basically what teenage boys are doing online. Teenage girls, I'm not so sure about, right?
It's similar.
Well, what I've been reading is that girls are still behind boys when it comes to things like showing aggressiveness and showing an interest in sexuality, but they're catching up.
Okay.
That's the official word, is that they're catching up, and at some point there's probably going to be no difference regarding the genders in terms of their interest and their levels of aggression.
Right, so girls are looking at porn online too, then, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
In very fancy words. Well, he did write over 1,000 books, so that's what happens, right? Avi, you have two girls.
Yeah.
They're a little young now to be surfing the net, but when they get a little older, they're going to be. Does this worry you?
Very much so. But I don't think authoritarian parenting works. I don't think saying no to everything works. I think you could let your kids use the internet, but like I said, monitor it. There's plenty of good stuff on the internet.
Reuven, if you're at a friend's house, you're 12, you're at a friend's house, and your friends say, "Let's go do something dirty on the net," would you take part in it, or would you just walk away?
Well, Avi's tickling me. I would definitely say no.
Sorry, I had a cough.
I would definitely say no. I would bounce. I would never talk to this.
Howie, all his relatives are listening. Keep that in mind.
I understand that.
My mom's
yeah.
listening. Just saying.
I would never. No.
No, I'm hoping that you'd be honest with us, because it's an honest discussion.
No, I wouldn't.
Here.
If I was 18 and a girl asked me, "Do you want to do something dirty?" and we were married, I would probably say yeah.
At 18, are you nuts?
Whatever. No, I meant 28.
All right.
But no, never at my age.
All right, fine. That's good.
See,
Thank God.
this is exactly part of the issue.
Yeah.
Because you're putting a kid on the spot like this, and there's consequences.
I just asked him a question.
You're not being fair to him.
I asked him a question.
No, you're not being fair to him.
He's on a panel. I asked him a question.
All right, you know what, Howie? When I was 12,
Yeah.
and I'll openly say this on the radio, because 12-year-old boys do this.
Right.
I looked at smut.
Okay.
I don't care. I'm not going to deny that.
Well, you can admit it now, because now you're an adult.
Yeah, he's not going to say he does.
And you don't have the same consequences that he would asking that question.
Well, of course
If this was an anonymous panel, sure.
Yeah.
But this is part of the problem. How can children feel that they can be completely honest with their adults around them when they know there's consequences to whatever they admit? And if you want to be able to communicate with kids and connect with children, you have to set up an environment where if they're honest with you about whatever's going on, your first reaction can't be, okay, what's the equivalent punishment? Your reaction has to be, now wait a minute here, this is what's happening, we have to deal with this in a mature fashion, because the parent is setting the example.
So, Frank, how much is too much? To what, like, you know, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, they're going to look at stuff. Let's face the truth.
Kids
But
are
how
gonna
much
look-
is too much?
Look, kids are going through puberty, and when you go through
Right.
puberty, you have certain hormones that are acting up and makes you do these things, right?
Here's what I can tell you.
And it calms down when you get older, to a certain extent.
it may.
Yeah.
Now, here's what you got
To a certain extent. I'm saying not completely, but to a certain extent. I mean, you're not looking at smut as much as you looked at it when you were 12 and 13, okay?
Because when
I
you're
have a
older,
better
you also have the
internet
opportunity to actually, participate. In
Exactly.
What you're looking at. But there's something different here, and I see this in my client base of young men. Actually, they spend so much of their teenage years looking at that material that it interferes with their ability to form emotional intimacy. And this is something I think that you were asking, at what point is it too much? It becomes too much when the constant exposure to it interferes with your ability to understand real relationships and have real relationships when you're older.
So you're saying provide proper sex education would be one of the things, if I'm correct.
You have to let kids know that what they're watching online, whatever that may be, okay? And let's get off the topic of pornography here out of respect for the station, but let's look at anything online that they may
violence.
be looking at. Violence.
All right.
Okay? Whatever you're looking at in terms of violence on the internet. Glorified violence on the internet isn't real. because they're usually actors. You have a 1,000 bullets flying everywhere, but nobody's dying.
What about what happened recently, a couple days ago in Hudson? There was a bullying incident. There were 50 students standing around watching a student get beat up.
Yeah,
It turns out it was drug related in the end.
and all they did was film it with their cell phones.
Nobody went to get help.
No,
Nothing.
one girl did.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it took a long time for it to...
Okay, so one person in that whole group environment actually smartened up and said, "Oh, I'm going to go do
But
something."
it became
about this."
glorified because it got posted to YouTube, like you're saying.
Exactly. And what you need to do with your kids, and I think this is where, if there's a school administrator involved, especially if that violence happened at their school, it's with the understanding that this is not acceptable behavior.
Right.
And you have to educate everybody that when you see this,
Well, don't
this is
people
what you do.
don't you think kids who are 14, 15, 16 years old know that beating up a kid is not acceptable behavior, that hitting each other
Unfortunately, in this incident,
and
no.
raping each other and destroying each other is not acceptable?
You're,
Come
you're
on.
being sarcastic because we all know that there are adults who still don't know that this is acceptable behavior.
I think how he's talking about the majority, though. I think
Look, there's exceptions to every rule, but I think the majority of people who are living in a humane society, who are living in a developed society in a First Nation country, know that I can't walk up to Avi and just punch him in the face.
But people don't know what to do when they are presented with that situation, other than the fact that they can acknowledge it's wrong. Okay, I know it's wrong, but what do I do? And that's where we have to do with
and
education.
it's posted on YouTube now, and that's all it
Exactly.
is. Everything
they
just
take it down.
posted on YouTube. They take it down, but they get
YouTube.
2 million hits by the time YouTube realizes.
The idea is that, but although they've taken it down and they understand now that's not appropriate, the idea is, what was the thinking process to put it on YouTube to begin with? We learned about this. I have a certificate in trauma counseling. And what we learned through this process is that people will react in a crisis situation based on their most immediate, absolute training. And when I say training, I'm not talking about professional training. I'm talking about how they grew up and what they believe that their first reaction is.
I have a question. Like, say your kid beat up another kid. Your son
Okay.
beat up another kid. What would you do to your son?
First thing I would do is I would take him aside and I would say, look, I want you to be as honest with me as you can. And I have already thought about this, that I want to establish a relationship with my son where he can feel honest with me. Whether or not I'm going to be successful, time will tell. But I want to know why he got into that fight. I'm not going to just punish him saying, well, you fought and that's wrong. I grew up in that environment, and that's not something I'm going to repeat. But I'm going to say to him, okay, explain to me exactly what happened. Were you defending yourself? Were you just mad and lost control? I want to know exactly what was the thinking behind that and the whole process of it.
And you think your kid's actually going to take the time to tell you what his thought process was and evaluate the situation, not just say, I got angry, so I hit him.
With a
I mean,
proper-
that's,
with
there's no
proper
thought process
parenting.
involved in fighting in school.
But there is a thought process where somebody is being attacked and you might want to step in and take action.
If you can pull the bullies aside, it usually works. I've been taught this too. I'm in special care, and you can usually talk to bullies separately. As a group, it doesn't work.
No.
Because that's usually how bullying happens. It's not usually one kid going outside and beating up another kid. It's usually a group.
Yeah.
We all know that. You very rarely hear cases of just sporadic bullying. Sorry about touching the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're all out of time, guys. Thank you so much for this very interesting discussion. Frank Kermit is an author. He's written over 2,000 books, and you could look at his repertoire on franktalks.com. Of course, he's a blogger on truetalkradio.com. Avi Tani is a stand-up comedian. He's been on HBO and he's performed at Just for Laughs Festival at least 16 times in the last 10 years. And you could hear his stand-up comedy all over the city. So just go to truetalkradio.com and
Thanks for that, Howie.
and we'll,
Thank you for tuning in, everybody.
and you'll be able to see Avi Tani. Go to YouTube and just type in Avi Tani, and there's all his appearances on HBO and ESPN.
Don't watch the HBO ones.
That's right. And Reuven Tani is 12 years old. Thank you, Reuven, for coming in, and
Thank you,
appreciate
everybody,
it.
for tuning in. It was great.
And Frank, thank you so much for interviewing me before. It was fun, and we're going to do it again sometime soon. I want to thank you for tuning in, and the Howie Silbiger Show airs every Sunday. It's between 6 and 9 p.m. here on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Shillong, Montreal, every Sunday night. We'll be back next week.